It's a mess.
I think we're on YouTube now.
YouTube is our home.
There.
Yeah, folks, go to YouTube.
I will share it over to...
YouTube is good. We will share it to... Yeah. We're going to share it to Facebook.
Bear with me here. Just don't touch something.
I was going to just type in
June
15th.
I'm just trying to see. We got to add a title.
It's a good thing we have all the time we want.
Yeah. See if this works. Counting down. No, that one's not. That one's not going to work. Sorry.
Hit go live.
No, it won't. It won't. We're already live.
Oh, the video's live?
We're here.
Oh, okay. Well, then if we're there, we're going to talk to you. Astros. Let me tell you, I went and looked at a deal today. Even if you're not an Astros fan, you should appreciate these facts. I also have some data for you involving these rolling brownouts we're about to be looking at.
Yeah, so the Astros have been on a bit of a roll lately. Doing well. You know what? We forgot the weather. We got to get the weather out of the way.
Well, we can do the weather whenever we want.
Yeah, but it's always better right now. So
Excuse me while I whip this out.
The frazzled Wade and Carter weather brought to you by the great folks, the steady 50 years at one location, Deerland Feed. 73 and mostly sunny all day today with a high of 93. Ties right into what we were going to say about ERCOT. You'll notice that ERCOT's sending out an urgent message today saying, hey, try to conserve all the electricity you can because the grid is under a lot of pressure. I've got a great friend that's been involved with ERCOT at the executive level for decades. I called him this morning and said, hey, to me this reeks of politics. It's the government trying to take over our grid. What gives? He said, well, if you can recall, he goes, I recall because I was in the middle of it. In 2011, we had a big freeze. By the way, they called that storm Uri. I didn't know that.
Really?
Ice storm,
okay.
Yeah. He said we had a big freeze in the winter around 2011, and that summer we had 6 rolling brownouts. And he said it's just a taxing of the grid. And he said plus capacity, because it's not very windy, so the wind farms are not supplementing. And he said it's also, what are we doing there? I don't care if I'm on the picture or not. He said we're also dealing with the fact that one of our nuclear facilities is down. 15,000 megawatt facility is down these days. So, you know,
that'll hurt you.
Supply is down, demand is up. What happens? You can't raise the price, so you just have to run out of supply. That's what happens. So try to cooperate if you can. Try to, maybe push your AC up to 75, 76. Try to lower the summer. Although, whether it's on 75, 72, it's going to run all day anyway at 93. But
true. There we
see,
go.
I just got a little whiff of your skunk situation this morning. One of Ash's cheaper by the dozen animals went outside and ran afoul of a skunk.
Decided to go after the skunk.
Skunk won.
Skunk
dog
won.
Nothing.
Dog nothing. I just got out of the shower, let the dog out. Go running out there because I thought it was my cat that the dog had.
Right.
I eat it into the wet, muddy, dirty grass. And I look up and it's not my cat. I see a white tail in the air and, typical skunk defensive pose. And then I start getting the smell of the skunk. Sprayed the dog pretty much full force. And now I've got a little bit of it. Ode to skunk.
Ricky King says, I bet I drove by 100 windmills yesterday that were not turning. BJ Nelson, back in a different incarnation after being banned by Facebook, says her title is The Common Sense Minute with BJ. There you go.
Why can't we build more energy plants? We are in a third world country. And that's something I had. If you're going to be providing an essential service, this is where, if the government's going to be involved in this, then damn the shareholders and the return on the investment. If we've got a capacity issue, then we either need to be building more capacity. Why weren't these plants out in March and April and maybe May when before we get into this point of the year? I don't know.
Well,
Lots of questions.
Part of what happened this spring when we had an untimely and huge, deep freeze.
It wasn't spring, it was still winter.
Well,
It's winter of
technically,
2021.
we are rebuilding. But it's not like it was November or December. It was,
February.
people thought, let's go ahead and get this plant shut down, make sure everything's working as we go into the hot summer months. Well, when they did, that's because it had been a fairly mild winter. We weren't expecting, Mr. Freeze to come to town.
No.
And all of a sudden, here comes Schwarzenegger with his ray gun and froze everything. It was kind of a perfect storm. But I don't understand why those plants that were down for maintenance back then aren't up now.
I agree.
But my friend did basically put to rest the idea that it's a government conspiracy. They're not they're not trying to sabotage our grid.
No, and we kind of knew that.
Yeah. I did. I was convinced it was Joe Biden.
Were you?
Well, you see where Joe Biden goes over the other day and he tells the European Union for 17 years. Now think about this. This was all said in one Washington Post article. For 17 years, there's been a kind of a trade war going with the EU countries over airline manufacturing.
Okay, yeah.
But somehow this particular issue was Trump's fault. 17 years it's been going on.
Let's see. Trump was president from 2016 to
It's back to Bush.
2021, or 2017 to 2021. So
Goes back
that's
to George
4 years.
W. Goes back to George W.
So
But
for 13 years outside of Trump, prior to this thing had been brewing.
Still Trump's fault.
Yeah.
And the idea was what Trump did, in part, was come in and say, hey, look, we're not going to buy airplanes from other countries that are being subsidized by their governments. We're going to buy Boeing because it's an American company. And people got upset about that, decided that Trump was really, really picking on these other countries. I think it's brilliant. I think not having to wait on a semiconductor is brilliant because we make it here. But Joe Biden, the article went on to say that Trump had basically made a mess. He attacked our allies with vitriol, and he basically saddled up next to traditional enemies and naysayers.
So basically what we did was we placated the Canadians and Bombardier, we placated France and Airbus, and probably put Boeing back into the disadvantaged situation, Brazil and Embraer for another, because a lot of, if I recall correctly, a lot of flap around Brazil, the government, and Embraer, and the planes they were making.
Yep.
Basically, if I remember correctly, and somebody can help me out if I'm wrong, or you can help me out if I'm misremembering this, but these other governments were subsidizing these aircraft builders, manufacturers in their countries. The U.S. government has had a problem with that because, in theory, they could then go and take the amount of that subsidy and reduce the cost of that aircraft to whoever's
Correct.
buying it, right? Whichever airline wants to buy it. So
they can sell an Airbus 300 to American Airlines for $10 million less because
the French government's
is
giving them a
us
bunch of
$10
money.
million.
Yes, exactly.
Guaranteed money.
So they can take a loss because the government's propping it up.
And Trump said, we're not going to do that. We'll put a tariff on that airplane. We're not
But
gonna-
the U.S. government apparently has had a problem with this for 17 years.
all the way back to Bush. And dormant, well, that's typical of Obama, who did really nothing while in office,
Yeah.
except apologize for being American, which
So-
he wasn't.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they They just let it flow on through. And then, which makes sense, Seattle's a hotbed of liberalism and Democrats, and Boeing is up there. So he let that go because it benefited Boeing.
Isn't Boeing leaving, though?
Yeah, they're leaving because they can't stand to be associated with the idiocy that is Washington, the state. Tragic liberal hotbed of dumbness. Who won last night? Notre Dame or Mississippi State?
Mississippi State was up in the fifth, like 10-3 or something when I watched that.
Well,
Because that was the final game, right?
I saw 11-5, and then this kid from Notre Dame came up. He was huge. I sat there with Dawn. It showed that he was by the way, good morning, T-Lad. Hope you're doing well. It showed he was a .299 hitter for the season.
Okay.
He was 0 for 3 for the night. There's a guy on base. I go, this guy's getting a hit. I mean, he's 0 for 3. He's a 300 hitter. He's due. He hit a ball out of the stadium, over the stands, out of the stadium.
Really?
Out of there, yeah. Dawn said, wow, look at that. I said, yeah, it's almost like I watched it earlier, which I hadn't. I went to bed. It was 11-7 Mississippi State. They were both scrapping.
Wonder where it finished up.
Look, what I'm noticing, and folks, I'm making a note, none of our listeners are filling in the gap, which means none of them really care about that. So I apologize.
There we go. NCAA baseball. Let me see. Mississippi State won at 11-7.
There you go. So I saw the significant.
And Virginia beat Dallas Baptist 5-2.
Dallas Baptist, how about that little bitty old school? Plays some D1 baseball and makes it all the way into
There you go. Judge Posey, Mississippi State versus Texas. Folks, you're going to want to listen on the Magic 95 app. Alexa, start Magic. You can say that. That'll open it up as well. I think we had 4 people listening that way yesterday.
I like that. We're in a transition.
And Magic95Victoria.com.
Make no mistake, what we're doing here, scrambling, is the exact same as trying to mail you a ballot, hand deliver you a ballot, help you fill out your ballot. We'll take your ballot back in. Have you registered? Let us register you. We've got you live on YouTube. We've got you live on the radio. Got you live on the Magic app. Got you live on the internet.
Shared it on Facebook. So
trying every way we can to accommodate until we come to you. I mean, it's a kind of a cross between the VEDC and Donald Trump. It's going to be super duper. I can't exactly tell you what it's going to be yet, but it's going to be super, super with no parts from China. So that's what I'm thinking. We're gonna bring you better video, better audio, more of a podcast feel.
Better production, hopefully.
That's
the goal. Speaking of China,
what's that?
They've got another situation where they're not spilling the beans on anything. Heard about it this morning. It's power related. They've got a nuclear reactor that provides power to a lot of Hong Kong. Apparently have problems with their, with one of their, there's 2 reactors on that site, at that plant. They've got problems with one of the cooling systems in one of them.
It's not called Chernobyl, is it?
No, but okay. We're heading there. So they've got, they had to call in the company that helped build this nuclear facility, which is a French company.
The France.
China's under sanctions, so they don't just have free will to do what they want when it comes to nuclear energy. So France, this company, had to send a letter to the U.S. Department of Energy saying, hey, here's what's really going on in China. China hasn't said a word to anybody about this. They're saying that the Chinese government actually increased acceptable levels of radiation out of this plant.
It'll be okay.
In order to avoid having to shut it down. Meanwhile, the Chinese government is then saying, oh, the U.S. is they're just lying. They're lying about what we're doing. They're just trying to play games. They're just doing what they do because it's the U.S. and we're just poor little old me China. It's almost like they're starting to manufacture another cover-up.
So do they believe what they're saying? Or
the people have no choice but to believe it, right?
The Chinese... Do you think that their government knows that they're lying to their people, or do you think?
Oh, heck yes, they know. They had to call in this company to help them.
Okay. I thought maybe they were that dumb.
And by whatever treaty piece of paper has been signed, the U.S. had to be notified because there's sanctions on China.
We're the keepers of the nuclear world.
Yes. So
Anyway, what's your gut? What's going to happen?
The Chinese company's trying to downplay it because you got a politic with China for whatever reason, and they're saying, well, I don't think there's any problems yet, but apparently they're having emergency meeting after emergency meeting after emergency meeting. So
couldn't you almost see the Chinese, who were complicit, at least complacent, in letting the COVID virus spread around the world? Couldn't you almost see the Chinese? Let's just let those Hong Kongians get a little bit exposed to some nuclear problems. They're not real proud.
I'm not sure
Hong Kong.
I'm not sure which way the wind blows there, but it's probably not going to go to Hong Kong. It'll probably go because Hong Kong's offshore. Most wind comes off from onto shore, so yeah, it's probably going to affect mainland China more than anything. But they're not going to let anybody know. The French company is saying that we probably won't reach Chernobyl or something like that. But I don't know. After what we just went through for the last year and a half with the coronavirus, and there's no gain of function, but there's gain of function. There's no real threat here, but there's a real threat here. No, this didn't leak back in October, but it leaked in October.
Right.
After all we've learned of dealing with the Chinese government, I won't be surprised if this thing becomes another Chernobyl. Let me just put it that way.
Where's that thing I sent you yesterday? Okay, so here's the deal Donald Trump put out. TLAC gave me
Let's take our break. Let's take our first break.
Hey, we'll take a break, then we'll tell you what TLAC gave us. Alan's Record Service, folks, 578-6300. Alan has been so busy. I visited with them the other day. They're just swamped. No pun intended. Pulling people out of the swamp. If you need help, you just dial 578-6300. And Alan's Record Service will come and get you. The VCS companies, our banner sponsor, the top level of quality anywhere in the region. Saw Kelly Hartman Hinkey yesterday at Veracruz. Got to say hi to her. They're blowing and going over there with surveillance and security and surround sounds and home theaters and outdoor theaters and on and on and on. You want a rock in your backyard that plays music? They got it. Reach out to the VCS companies. Bobby Leon and his family serving your family for 101 years. Chesapeake Furniture, 116 West Juan Lynn, the corner of Juan Lynn and Bridge. Bobby Leon will help you get exactly what you want because he knows you just do better at Chesapeake. We say Chesapeake and love, make your house a home. Go by and see them today. And then, of course, Veracruz yesterday. I had the Wade and Carter Compuestas.
Did you?
They were fantastic. Everything was so fresh. Guac, the serrano peppers, hot, but so perfect.
Were they excited to see you after being gone for a week?
Yes, mostly because I wore my Veracruz t-shirt.
Well, that'll do it.
I told Ida, it's not swag, it's a uniform, and I'm ready if you need me. She said, please, sit in the back, quietly. Fantastic lunch, in and out. I mean, honestly, T-Lat and I were in and out of there for $20. You cannot go wrong. 100% Veracruz. Bob Constantine, Texas Coast Limo, 576 Limo, 575 Limo. I saw the folks from Project Tickle Peak out at the car show this weekend. And the fire truck was there, and they were sharing just all the different ongoing, constant polishing and maintenance of the things they do to that truck as a rolling tribute to all the cancer survivors. Project Tickle Pink is just a great, it just came in and was, bam, a big addition to our community. What are you doing?
I don't know. I'm getting the camera's not optimal.
It's only
message and it's not.
It's not. It's because it's more like 680p or something. It's not. Yeah.
So I'm trying to get it where it needs to be, but it's not
so
getting there.
T-Lat forwarded me a deal the other day. It was a message from Donald Trump, and he says, "Have you noticed that they are now admitting I was right about everything they lied about before the elections?" He said hydroxychloroquine works. The virus came from a Chinese lab. Hunter Biden's laptop was real. You remember the Democrats said there's no laptop. He's lying. It didn't come from a lab. Fauci was like, hydroxychloroquine doesn't work. Lafayette Square was not cleared for a photo op. D.C. police admitting that they cleared it. That's going to be Terry Poole.
Yeah.
The Russian bounty story was fake. We did produce vaccines before the end of 2020 in record time. Blue state lockdowns didn't work. Schools should be open. Critical race theory is a disaster for our schools and our country, and our southern border security program was unprecedentedly, I'm not sure it's a real word, it had unprecedented success. There you go. DJT turned 75 yesterday.
Good morning, Wade and Carter. Hey, Terry, how are you? We're doing good.
It's probably for the best, Terry. It's probably for the best. Since we've had technical difficulties and people can't hear us, our market share has gone up 4%. How are you, sir? Absolutely.
Yeah, for those tuning in on Facebook or YouTube, make sure you listen on the Magic 95 app if you want to hear the phone calls, or magic95victoria.com. You can hear there. We're getting this sorted out hopefully tomorrow. I'm hoping.
Or just on the radio.
Or just on the radio, Magic 95.9
here
if you're in the Victoria area. Absolutely.
Plenty of bandwidth here from the Tower of Power. Terry saw a note today. I don't know what Ash wants to talk about. I'm going to assume baseball is on the table. I saw a deal today said the Astros lead the major leagues. Hits, runs, OPS,
slugging percentage,
slugging, and team average. Well, you know, they took 2 out of 3 from Toronto. They took 2 out of 3 from the Twins. They took 2 out of 3 from Boston. And that's a really successful road trip because none of those teams are terrible, and you're on the road. I thought they did really well to win 6 out of 9. Well, there's so many good ones. Urquidy's good too, but he can.
And Odorizzi actually pitched pretty good the other day.
He's still a question mark for me, but when I look at this Astros team, and I've said this here for years, we do have a lot of listeners that are Astros fans, and then we have BJ, but I've said for years that when the Astros are loose and having fun and keying off of Altuve and Correa, and used to be Springer, when they were excited and high-fiving in the dugout and having a good time, they were impossible to beat. Because when they're loose, they forget that they were young and they were not intimidated, and they just get after it and have a great time, and they just dominate people with just raw physical talent. Tell me about what comes to mind for you when you were playing with team chemistry, and can you give us like any little snippet of some great team chemistry you had with other players back in the day, or maybe when the chemistry wasn't right and how it affected y'all's team? with your favorite team, against your favorite team, is there any chance that team chemistry, did it key on having a Canadian on the team that was constantly apologizing for everything? Terry Poole with a leadoff home run. He apologizes to the pitcher. Right. I am great pitching. I heard you mention that you've been high on Yordan Alvarez. As a lifetime outfielder, I hear people so casually say, "Well, just put him in left. I mean, let him play left. Like, it's no big deal. Just put him in left field." I watched him the other night, a ball that Michael Brantley would have taken. He would have turned his back on it, run back about 20 steps, turned around, picked it up, and caught it. I watched Alvarez chase his glove towards the Crawford boxes, the glove's above his head. He's running out there, and finally, I thought he was going to wrench his back trying to reach back and catch a ball that he did not get a glove on. And I thought to myself, oh, yeah, just put him in left. Big league left fielder, no big deal. Yeah.
When it's hit right at him, he's pretty good.
What a compliment to a big league player. Hey, if it's hit right to him, he usually catches it.
If there's any weak spot with the Astros, where do you see it as the summer heats up and the postseason pressure begins?
How valuable is Diaz, Aldemus Diaz? Aledmus. Oh, did he? Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What has he played? He's played every infield position and outfield.
So looking back to the off season, and a lot of fans lamented the loss of George Springer. That's not looking like such a bad non-move now, is it?
Right. Wow.
It's crazy.
Dawn and I watch most of the games together, and the other day she comes in and she goes, "We must be way ahead." And I said, "Where do you get that?" She goes, "Paredes is on the mound." And I said, "Yeah." We watched him one day, and Dawn's so matter of fact, and she's a great baseball fan. She's great to watch a game with. It's a real bonus to have a wife that loves baseball. And we were sitting there, and he's warming up. Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
But she's sitting there, and for you, in your case, it allowed her to live indoors and eat hot meals. But I mean, in my case, I'm just a rabid fan. And she says, "Is that guy on something?" Because he was bouncing around the mound like he'd just been sniffing glue or something, And I said, "Probably not, Dawn, at the major league level. He's just high on life." Well, man, he started pitching, and I mean, it was like he threw 9 pitches, and 8 of them were balls, and we were both looking at each other, and he didn't make it through his half of the inning. But that was about a month ago, and he's kind of rallied a little bit since then. But they were up the other night against somebody, and it was like 11-3. And the announcers go, well, if this lead holds, we'll probably see Paredes, and if not. And I was just like, yeah, there you go.
Well, and if we see Paredes, the lead may not hold.
The lead may not hold.
Hang on, Terry. We're going to take our next break, and then we'll come back and talk about some of the more current developments in the major leagues.
Okay, folks, Atzenhofer, Atzenhofer.com. Atzenhofer, since 1926, Victoria's finest car dealership. Huge supporters of the Astros and the Generals and the UHV Jaguars. Get by Atzenhofer since 1926 or shop at Atzenhofer.com. White Trash Services, 550-1826. They're blowing and going.
For all your trash collection needs, whether it's weekly service, a dumpster, roll-offs, they've got it all. Give them a call. They can help you with all your trash projects.
550-1826. If you call White Trash, you get to talk to a human being. Razor IT Solutions, JP Hull will help you with all your analytics and all your data and your encryption and everything. Razor IT Solutions can help you build a brand, build a website, integrate your website and your Facebook page, help you gather money, keep that money, and protect all of your information. Reach out to them today. The law offices of Steve Kidder. If you fail to protect your people's data, reach out to the law offices of Steve Kidder. He can help you with contracts, adoptions, sadly, divorces, whatever you need help with. Legally, Steve Kidder's your guy. And today, we sent Chad Hall and Georgia and Michelle over to the Health Bar to have a waffle. You should go by there as well. Right there on Red River, right next to Woodlawn Bowl, is the Complete Health Bar. And they make a gluten-free, protein-based waffle that they infuse with fruit, whether it be blueberries or strawberries or pineapple, or all of it, if that's what you want. They have a no-calorie whipped topping that is just kind of got a cinnamon flavor to it, and then they have syrup that's low-cal, and it is phenomenal and a good protein-based breakfast. So go by there today. I love talking baseball with Coach Poole.
I do too. Terry, let's look locally. How are things shaping up? I know it's busy. Recruiting season's going on. How are things looking for a hopeful non-COVID year next year? Sounds good.
When you say that, it's like I picture him driving up in like a 5-window, 1950s Chevy pickup with a flatbed on the back, and we got our gear, Coach. Where do we warm up? The old Barta boys just trying to get it's them Barta boys are coming down to pitch.
Shh, we don't want to say that too loud. Then somebody else will be after him.
Tell me about it's a two-part deal. You shape it however you want, but being predominantly, I guess you were always a National League guy, weren't you? Did you ever play? Okay, so if baseball goes to the full-time DH, what do you think that does to the managing of the game and the dynamic of is it a big deal? I mean, to those of us that are purists, I've always thought it was harder to manage in the National League because you had to manage around the pitcher spot. But does it matter in the long run? Is the game probably more enjoyable with a full-time DH And then what do you do with a guy like Ohtani? Right. It's a funny thing. I think Cheo invented just for men, and he, what did he play? About 46 seasons with the Astros. I mean, he's and you know what's interesting is I'll see him at Minute Maid, and I guess because I'm old now, he assumes we have to know each other. He's the nicest man ever. And he'll walk up and go, "Hey, buddy, how are you doing?" I mean, he initiates the conversation. I'm like, "Mr. Cruz, it's great to see you, sir." You know, just he's phenomenal. Oh yeah, he was clutch. Wow.
That's right. Yeah.
Wow.
That's got to be pretty special. So let's talk a little bit about that. How does that change the college baseball landscape in Houston? You've got Jose Cruz Jr. at Rice. You've got Lance Berkman at Houston Baptist. How do you see that changing things? It almost says, UH is no longer the only game in town, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, when you tie all that back in, so my buddy that I went to college with, Doug Hodo, his son, Douglas III, is playing and doing very well for the Longhorns. And Hodo's dad was the president of HBU for a number of years and really raised a bunch of money for them is what he did.
He was the president there when they went D1.
Right. So Dr. Hodo brought them into the D1 world. And now you've got, and Hodo and Lance are great friends. And then you've got Berkman in there. And imagine being able to tell a parent, well, it's been said I'm arguably a Hall of Famer, Lance Berkman, and I can give your kid the Houston big city experience with more of a Baylor flair of an education. If the kid, and Rice is just a special kid to be able to get into Rice and be a D1 athlete. But to be if I'm comparing, well, do you want your kid, downtown in Houston? Do you want your kid out here with us, on the southwest side, going to a little Christian school? I think Lance is going to have some recruiting advantages. Now, U of H has always been big-time baseball and will be. But I think he's going to have some real recruiting advantages over, some other schools. It should be fun to watch.
UH has a couple of kids playing in the Texas Collegiate League that have just smoked the ball so far this year. Steven Rivas, who's playing outfield and playing for the Generals, has just been on fire lately, so we'll get a chance to see him tonight. Generals back in action tonight. Terry, we talked a little bit about the move to a permanent DH in the majors, and it looks like that one's going to happen. What about some of the other moves that have been talked about? Last year, with the COVID year, they implemented a tiebreaker for extra innings, putting a runner on second base. Does this one have any legs going forward?
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, it's a rule they adopted from softball, and it works for softball. But I don't know that it adds to the game. And let's be honest, how many? I mean, I know they show the numbers. I think most of the games last year that went extra innings ended before 12 innings.
Right.
They were only playing about 2 extra innings, and I think that saved about an inning on an extra inning game per average. But I mean, I think the average game prior to last year was going about 12 innings if it went extra innings, or something like that, or 11 point something. And these were ending about an inning earlier. But the 18 inning extra inning ball game is just not a reality. And
the anomaly to me, or the thing that would frustrate me, is you have a great pitcher's game that goes, it's 0-0 after 9, and then we put a guy on second. We have 2 pop-ups to the outfield, and the runner scores. And you're like, okay, well, that doesn't seem right. Have you had a chance, Coach, to spend any time watching Vlad Guerrero Jr.? Skip, he is unbelievable. He's unbelievable at first base and at the plate. I think he's just a phenomenal, to be a big guy. He's not really necessarily tall, but he's thick. I watched him, when he got pulled off the bag, grabbed the ball, reached back, tagged the runner. He does a lot of heads-up stuff in the infield. And when he hits the baseball, of course, he just crushes it. But did you ever play with anybody whose dad played in the big leagues? Like Bobby Bonds and Barry, did you play with anybody whose dad was in the bigs before them? I just wondered if you, because sometimes you wonder if look, Ken Griffey Jr. was better than Ken Griffey. Barry Bonds was better than Bobby Bonds. Vlad Guerrero Jr., I don't know, his dad was pretty good.
Yeah.
But you just wonder how many of these guys.
Well, the Blue Jays' whole theory and building a franchise is to draft kids of former major leaguers.
Like Dante Bichette's kid and Biggio's kid. They got no intimidation, They feel like they belong on that stage. I think that's awesome. Pete Rose's kid comes over and says, "Hey, Mom, I'll give you 2-1 on the Dodgers."
He was running his books for him.
He always had a pencil behind his ear and a notepad.
Yeah. And he wasn't a writer.
Dad says you owe him $50 in the juice.
Joe West just recently umpired more games than any umpire in the history of baseball. Any memories and recollections of Joe West? You're one of the few then, from what I understand.
Did you ever have? I can't picture it because you're such a gentleman. But did you ever have like a moment, like a Tourette's moment, where you question a called third strike, you know, it was low and away, and you got yourself in trouble with an umpire ever? Did you ever get tossed? In the big leagues. Yeah, and it just the little box just doesn't lie. When you watch it on TV, there are times though that and I don't know what if I'm just a purist. You know, and I try to think. I actually think of myself as more of an aficionado of the art of the game, and there's just some pitches that may be a ball when it's 2-2, but it's not a ball when it's 3-2. That pitch is too close for you to take. And it's uncanny to me how many times, say with a full count, if that batter decides to start trotting toward first before that umpire grants him that walk, I've seen that umpire demonstrably just go, boom, you're done, and ring him up. And I don't know why that is. That's what makes baseball great. It's you know, every park has different dimensions. There's different nuances to every part of the game, and I think that makes baseball great. I would never want to see an electronic strike.
Well, and they're going to that in the minor leagues. Do you think that's one of the? Do you think the electronic strike zone will come to the major league level?
Well, but that's spoken like a true hitter. I mean, if you and I are honest and objective, if you knew exactly where the strike zone was all the time, you'd have probably hit 330. I'm not joking. Think about it. You're very humble, but you'd have probably been a 330 lifetime hitter if you just said, because you were very cerebral. You know, if you just said, hey, that's not a strike, and they go and review it. Well, good play. and probably raise your home run total. The cavern.
You and everybody else that played regularly in there. That thing, yeah, balls went to die in the outfield.
The AC vents were blowing in. It's just bad.
What do you make of the pitchers and the substance? The you know, the lid got blown off of this with Garrett Cole's non denial in an interview a week or so ago.
I love it.
When he just struggled to answer a question, and you know, I credit him for not lying. I mean, it shows he's a pretty honest guy when he tries to not lie and he still can't answer, but doesn't really answer.
Except when he scuffs.
Well, yeah, but you know, and yesterday baseball said anybody gets caught, automatic 10-day suspension, which for pitchers is nothing. You miss 2 starts, big deal. You know, if you're really going to have teeth on that, make it a start. If you start every 5th day up until that point, you're missing, you know,
3 starts.
3 starts or whatever it is. You know, they can figure that stuff out. But was this a surprise to you that it seems as widespread as it is, or is this just sort of something that is finally gaining traction and has been there all along?
Yeah. 3,000 spin rate. I,
Yeah.
No. But I mean, here's Ash asking you like a serious question. You played with and against the Necros and Gaylord Perry, and I'm sure that Mike Scott could tell you a thing or two about a handy thumbnail. And I just find myself going, you're like asking the Fox about the hen house here. He's not going to tell you anything.
But is it as big a deal when every ball is thrown out of the game after, one hit?
If it gets hit, infield, ground a 6-3 out, they take the ball and throw it into the stands. I mean, it's like, I guess it's going to get knocked out around. I don't get it. We used to play with them for weeks.
Yeah. But
it's the umpire that's doing it.
they bought him up.
Right. He's got a big old doll of Kramer Jezik on the back of his shin guard.
Yeah.
When he throws it out there, it's like lopsided. I see. As he throws it, Terry, it kind of goes whoop, 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 whoop. Looks like a wiffle ball going out there. Well, hey,
leaving a rooster trail.
I can do this, and I appreciate you indulging so many of my dumb questions, but our listeners love this, and we can do this. I can do this with you for hours, and I know that I don't.
Yeah.
You've never given me a cell number, but let me tell you that we've reached
We
the top of
appreciate it,
the
Terry.
hour.
We got to run. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Be safe, and thanks for all you do and for your part of history in the great game. We love you, sir.
Thanks, Terry.
Be safe.
Bye.
Folks, of all the people that we're fortunate to get on the air, I can't explain to you how much that one reaches me. That guy, I mean, from most of my childhood and early adulthood, that guy just knows every ball player that I like. What do you know about? Tell me about. And he knows them all. Didn't meet them. He knows them. It's awesome. Somebody that knows mortgages. Terry Murray, 541-5454. You want somebody that knows every mortgage, knows the best deal for you, can help you lower your monthly payment, help you pull cash out, all the way up to a reverse mortgage if that's what you and your CPA think works. Call Terry Murray, 541-5454. Wentz Services. Good luck. You need a generator. You need to get on the list to get a generator. They're not going to charge you. Call Wentz Services. Generators, solar panels, electrical work, plumbing work, emergency work. If you just need a new plug in a barn, call Wentz Services. USA Concrete Coatings,
578-HOME.
Home.
Number to call. Easy one to remember.
Pool decks,
578
porches, patios,
sidewalks,
garage
concrete
floors.
slabs, they do it all.
They do it all. And for your next party, you owe it to yourself just to have a conversation with Cheryl at the Gray Barn. I was flattered. I've been to numerous events now that Cheryl has designed the decorations. And to hear Bob Constantine talk about Project Tickle Pink, and he said, I got to tell you, and Bob is passionate about this project, and it's his deal. It's how he gives back. And he said, man, she had me so excited about the event When she said, well, I could do this and I could do that. And he said, I just got fired up, and I can't wait to have Cheryl work on our next event. So 920-6803, let her help you make your event memorable. We're going to get out of here. The Hall of Famer Ralph Salazar